Yeah. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for making time to join us this evening. I know it's a Friday and we are working, but we had to walk through scheduling and availability. So this is on Friday, even though we typically hold our webinars on Saturday. So thank you so much for joining. Um, as you know, the topic we're talking about today is hacking career growth in 2024. I need that because I'm about to finish my degree and I'm looking for a job again. But today we have a very special guest, a good friend and brother, and a superstar at his job. So, I begged him, I said, come and help us. And he's here today. In case you don't know me, my name is Bemi Leke, obviously. You can call me Bemi Leke, one of the co-founders of African Good Tribe. I'm currently pursuing my master's degree. I feel like I'm rapping. Okay, if this career doesn't work out, you know what else to do. Anyway, yeah, I'm currently pursuing my master's degree in media arts and sciences at Arizona State University. This is my final semester. Sorry if you can, I don't know if you can hear, but there's an airport near me, so please. My final semester, have 3 months to go. And like I said, I'm excited to have you. So I would just like Esther, who's the other co-founder, to introduce herself, then we'll go over to you. Esther, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm just not, I don't have the energy for the rap like Lakey. It's a bit dark in here. Maybe I'm just too lazy to turn on the lights, but I'll try before the end of the program. My name is Idogwe Esther, and thank you, Emmanuel, for coming. And thank you, everyone, for coming. So I'm currently doing my PhD in plant genetics in Hungary. And I'm excited about the topic as well, because apart from being a researcher in the lab, I still do other things, and I would like to hear how to navigate those parts of life because the world is really evolving. We're moving from traditional biological science to now you hear things like big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, even in the biological space. So if you don't upskill or you don't get yourself somewhere with some skill sets, you will just become obsolete in your field. So that is the generation we find ourselves, the Gen Z generation, according to my friend Leke. So
Yes.
it's great to have everyone here, and thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you so much, Esther. So without further ado, going to Emmanuel, please introduce yourself, just like a background, academic background, and maybe a little career overview.
Okay, yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm like super excited to be diving into this with you guys. My name is Emmanuel Ogunwede. Background, yeah, I studied computer science, so like I'm a CS major graduate and I don't have a master's. Just navigating the career world. I started out in data science and I have gone through many data roles, different data roles, and I currently work in consulting for a company called Brooklyn Data Company as a data engineer. So my day-to-day is interacting with different kind of clients that have like different kind of data needs, and I just help them to be successful at what they do while trying to leverage data. So that's hopefully that's not too fast, Licky.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Me too, I'm a CS major, but I did not used to do anything in life. Uh, yes. Okay, so thank you very much. It's nice to have you. So you mentioned having gone through different data roles. Maybe my first question would be, was there anything that particularly influenced you to, specialize in data science or data science annexed roles? And then walk us through your journey of, okay, what did you start out as, and how did you like make the decisions to maybe transition from one role to the other?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so because I studied computer science, in my final year I had to do a project, right? And my supervisor at the time said I should propose topics, right? And so what I wanted to really work on was some sort of improvement of the popular PageRank algorithm. That's basically how Google started. right? But then she was not really interested in algorithms, or she was not interested in traditional algorithms. So she treated it as a challenge to me. She said she was going to give me a topic, and basically it's something that is extremely new, but if I'm interested in it, I should take it up for myself. And so I ended up doing something around prediction of epileptic seizures using just machine learning techniques, right? Just to optimize how you do prediction of epileptic seizures. And at the time, we used to use MATLAB, right? But my laptop was probably a 2 gig RAM or 4 gig RAM laptop. MATLAB was massive. My data set was like, it had like over 100,000 records, if you think of like a spreadsheet, and it was extremely large. So I was looking for a way to optimally run something really large on a very big software on my laptop and allow it to like allow me perform my stuff because it was always hanging. And so I stumbled on Python as a final year graduate. And that's when I started learning about support vector machines, machine learning, and I thought it was super cool, right? And then small backstory, my dad wanted me to study something engineering related because I mean he was a mechanical engineer. And so best of both worlds for me was transferring these machine learning skills to, like computer vision and focus on building softwares for self-driving cars, right? And when I started learning that, I started learning more about AI and machine learning in my final year just before I graduated. So as soon as I graduated, I didn't have enough money to do Udacity nano degree on self-driving cars. And so I just started learning more about algorithms, picked up some Udemy courses. Along the line, I joined an internship, and that's when I heard about this thing called data science. So it was like, oh, you will use this machine learning algorithm, but on tabular data sets, and you will try to predict something. Just ideally, how they sell it to us is, oh, you predict the future. So I thought that was, I think there's some feedback. I thought that was cool. I thought that was interesting, and um, I dabbled into that. I completed the internship. It was over maybe 1,000 people. There were like 100 people that made it through, and then top 13 got interviewed, and then 9 people out of that top 13 got the job. So like fresh out of school, started data science in a company here in Lagos, Nigeria, as a credit, what will I call it now? Credit risk data scientist. Basically, what that means is I was predicting if people, when we give them loans, if they will pay back those loans based on certain features about them, right? And from starting there, like doing data science, I did that for a year, but then it quickly became kind of boring for me because you're building the AI models, or that's what we thought before we joined the company. But then it turns out we just have to clean data, feed it to something called data robot, and it will do all the predictions, build over 100 models, and it will tell the company what model to use and why. And so it took away all the fun stuff, or all the stuff I thought was interesting, right? And so from there, I dabbled into software engineering proper. I joined a smaller startup that was based in Kaduna. They were building a tech solution for law students. And there I played more of the role of a project or product manager, like just doubling as those two things. And so I observed how software engineers were building the products for the company, and I would do all the testing. I understood the lingo of the software engineer, so I could, carry their concerns back to management and all that kind of stuff. I did that for about 6 months, and from there I started learning about software engineering myself. And then I joined another company. That was the first time I was in consulting. And in that company, I was building backend API, so doing core software stuff. But then the focus was for machine learning or AI products. So it was still in line with what I had learned in the first company about like building, because in the first company, I was focused on the AI stuff. Someone else was doing software engineering for AI, but now it was like the tables turned and I was doing software engineering for AI. So I worked there for about a year. I picked up quite a number of reasonable skills there, and I was really, really interested in just focusing on backend from that point. But then I interviewed with two companies and at the same time, and they both rejected me. I applied for data analyst in one, software engineering in the other one, and both companies rejected me and proposed that I interviewed for a data engineering role. So I thought that was interesting. Like, why would two different companies in two different parts of the world look at the same CV and say, oh no, I don't think you make a good data analyst. I don't think you make a good software. The second one, it was because of their stack, right? They used JavaScript and Golang. I was using Python. And so they didn't feel like I'll be a good fit. But then they thought with the skill set I had, I would make a good data engineer. So in one company, I interviewed as senior data engineer with zero experience as a data engineer. And then in the other company, I interviewed as just data engineer. And so I made it to the final stage of one, but they were looking for someone really advanced. I had little experience with some of the tools they wanted, but then because of the position they were looking for, I wasn't really a good fit for that level of seniority. And so on those bases, they actually rejected me. The second company was happy for me to join them and figure things out because they were trying to figure out how to navigate and use data and all of this stuff. And so I started my data engineering career properly in that company. And then after about a year, I joined my current company, and yeah, I've been doing a lot of data engineering stuff. So yeah, I've done like work of data analyst, data scientist, data product manager, software engineer, machine learning engineer, and I'm just focusing on data engineering. But that's kind of like the trajectory for me.
Okay. I think for me, what I've been able to draw from all that you said is a lot in general, career paths, especially these days, are not linear. So yes, you're doing data and data adjacent roles, but it's all right to take some time to figure things out. And what Emmanuel wouldn't say is that he's really good at his job. And so yeah, that's why you can, interview for one thing, and the people interviewing you can recommend you for something else entirely. So now back to navigating, you know, hacking career growth in 2024. Um, so you currently work for like an international consulting firm, right? How how did you get there? Like, what would you say has helped your career so far? Maybe top three things that has helped you even transcend borders, right? So we're all in the states where we're looking at the naira and we're like, God, I beg. How were you able to, position yourself such that you're good enough that your options aren't just Nigerian companies. You can confidently apply to wherever, as long as maybe they accept remote work and stuff. So how are you able to do that? Top
Yeah,
three
so
things or top five, whichever one you can do.
yeah, so the first thing I would say is that in terms of like maybe like positioning yourself, there are very deliberate things you can do, and I'll dive into them now. But then also like there's always a bit of luck in these things, right? So like I mean some people try and try and try, and they almost never get like an international job. It was my first attempt, first company, and I got it, right? So yeah, there's a bit of luck. I don't think I'm an expert there. But then I would say one thing that really, really like made me to stand out every time I talked to like a new organization or talk to new people is transferable skills. Before I would say it's willingness to, get the job done and that kind of stuff. And then I reflected those in my CV. And so it made me good. But then when I thought about it carefully, I think when you're thinking about growth, one thing that is very important is to focus on transferable skills. And I'll give like a very brief example. You might be working in some sort of monotonous job now. Maybe you have to fill in like input data entry and all that kind of stuff. Something you will definitely work with in whatever field or domain is probably something like Excel, right? And if you want to be a data analyst, for instance, it means you need to be good at Excel, right? So you may be using Excel in one field and you're doing something for a very specific domain and it's probably boring. But then some people will say, no, I just want to focus on understanding the business, and they lock themselves into maybe that field, but then they don't enjoy Excel, so someone else is always doing that for them, right? And then there are other people that will be willing to go deep and say, oh, we use this thing called Excel and I really, really want to get good at using Excel. So I realized, like, looking back, it's kind of like a journey and the dots connect for me. And the first thing is that I always focused on transferable skills, and that's why it was easy for me to transition through all of these roles, because there are always connections. They're like certain skills that you're doing in this particular job, but then it's like an entry point into the next job. And so yeah, transferable skills. The next thing I would say is, which for me is kind of like the driving force when I started out, is having like a clear vision of like a very, very high level goal you would like to achieve, right? And for me, like the idea has always been impact with data, right? So when I was thinking data science, how can I impact someone else's life? How can I make their life more easy? How can I make their job, a lot more better using data, right? And, that encouraged me to learn about AI and all these things, because I felt if I can save the company money by having correct predictions on like loans that we disburse, then I'm more valuable to the company and I'm more valuable to myself, right? Other companies will want to pay me, to use that skill with them. And so I focused a lot on like a very, very high level vision. Now, if the task doesn't fit the job description and it aligns with my vision, I was always open to learning, right? And so that way, as a so-called data analyst, I was tinkering with Kubernetes. That's for the company I was interviewing as a data analyst. As a so-called data analyst, I had very, very sound experience and knowledge, working with APIs and writing APIs myself and all of these things and leading other teams, to do this kind of stuff. That was a skill that was not probably required for a data analyst. But because my own vision when I was in these companies where I was using these tools was, oh, how can I make the life of the CEO better? How can I make the life of, the CTO better? I did not mind learning about software engineering, like stuff. I didn't mind learning about DevOps related stuff. I was really, really interested in just being good at my job, and like being efficient. And so that my vision of, oh, I really, really want to like make impact with data, anything that concerns data, if learning it will make me get better of like creating impact with data, I was open to it. That really helped, right? And then I think another thing is discipline. Discipline, because especially for entry-level roles, there's this, sorry, I think there's feedback in the background. Oh, okay. Yeah. So discipline for entry-level roles, there's this misconception, and I'm not going to say work-life balance is a bad thing, but then there's a reality of learning, being a beginner and being an expert. And what I'm trying to pull out of this is that the first time I'll give an example. The first time I had to deploy something to the cloud, Heroku was a very free platform at the time. I was trying to deploy an API. It took me 2.5 days to do it. 2.5 days of hitting my head on the wall, being confused, not knowing how to go about deployments. Because in an ideal world, a DevOps engineer would handle that, right? But then I had to learn about it. When I asked someone else, I was like, how long does it take you to deploy something to Heroku? Is it this difficult? It's like, oh, a few hours, I'll be done. I felt really bad, but then I understood the gap. This person had experience and exposure, and he's been doing it for a while. It was my first time of doing it, and I was a beginner in the space, right? And so the discipline to actually put your head down, understand that if it takes an expert 4 hours, it probably takes you 4 days, right? And accept that you're not going to be there forever, but then it's a learning curve you have to go through, is very, very important when you're starting out. And so, I mean, some people might say it's self-awareness, but then it's actually discipline, like willingness to bend your head and get the job done. That really made the difference for me also. And then the last thing is being able to track goals. If you have a vision, a broad vision, whatever it is, a high level goal that you have defined, being able to track it and follow it is very important, because that way you have some sense of direction and you know what to say yes to and what to say no to. Because I mean, during COVID, I had an opportunity to transition into real estate and like work with somebody and do real estate stuff. It was good money. It was an amazing position. It wasn't an entry-level position. And I will be working directly with the owner of the company. And I was supposed to go to school. I got like a partial scholarship. He offered to pay my school fees, for me to like go if I don't get the partial scholarship I needed to go to school. It sounded like a good opportunity, but then it did not align with the direction I wanted to go in life, right? And so although it was tempting, because I had a clear path that I had like carved out for myself, very high level. I knew I wanted to be in tech, I wanted to write code, and I wanted to be like in the data space. There was no alignment there. And so even though it was like a good thing, I found the confidence to say no because I had a well-defined goal. So I think those things really, really help when it comes to like, like growing a career. And then one that helps along the way, but not necessarily at the beginning, is focusing on like soft skills, especially learning how to communicate. It's very, very important if you're in a technical role. If you want to transcend junior, entry level, or mid level, then you must be a great communicator. So that's a very powerful soft skill. Yeah, I think I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. I think there's a lot to unpack there, but a few things that stood out for me was I'm having an overarching plan for yourself. I think this may not be easy, especially like in entry level roles. My entry level role was in sales. I did not have any vision. I just wanted to leave my mother's house and be able to take care of myself. And so I desperately hated my job, but it put food on the table. Um, but then I think with my second role, I was more intentional. I was like, okay, so this is what I want to do. And I think with every role that I've taken, after that, I've had a a vision for myself. I've had a plan in mind. Um, but if anything, I think it's for me, I'm like, okay, so what exactly do I want to do or achieve in general with my careers? That's good, something great to think about. But what I also hear you say is that's not enough to have a plan for yourself. It's you need to have a plan for the company. How are you in particular improving or enhancing the company's vision? So it's not enough to just be I am a data analyst. They gave me data and I do my work. It's like what problem are you solving? Because that I think that would take you from just being a data analyst that anyone just sees to I think maybe even noticed by if you're in a good place and you don't have crazy people that you work with, may make you stand out among your colleagues because they see that you are not just ticking boxes, right? They see that, oh, maybe this is but we use XYZ software and they've been using it for a while, but if maybe on your role, you do some research and like, oh, we can actually use something else. This is a more efficient way to do stuff. And you say, okay, you know what, why not let's create a different pipeline. Let's implement this differently. And that shows that like you're thinking for yourself, but also for the company. And some of us here might be like, the companies I've been working with are trash. Nigerian companies, the work-life balance, the environment is trash. But I think that again, if you have that overarching vision of what you want your career path to be, um, I think you might still be able to, in a lot of circumstances, push through by creating value for the company um, sorry. Okay, yeah, by creating value for the company. And I also heard you talk about yes, overarching plan. Yes, wanting to contribute to the company in a way that I don't think. So my husband and I have a debate of how much work should you do? I should be like working overtime and doing extra. My own theory is, this is an aside, is that all you need to do is what I like to call the barest minimum, which is doing exactly what you should do. And if I'm being honest, most people don't. Um, and I like to give the example of working in a bank where they'll say, oh, your target for this year is 1 billion. Most people will not hit that target. So if all you do is hit your 1 billion naira target, you are like a star. They will give you bonus, they will give you everything. My point is like, do what you are supposed to do, right? And I don't think that you have to prove to anyone and then maybe you close by 5, you leave by 10 to show anything. Sometimes the issue is that you're not maximizing your productivity. You are just, lagging. But creating value for the company is important. But also like if you want to stick, so if the first couple of roles that you do you may not be clear what you want to do actually. It may just be, I tried this, no, try it, no. But when you are clear on what you want to do, recognize that like Emmanuel mentioned taking 2 days to deploy something on a Heroku, recognize that there's like it's an expertise spectrum. There's entry level, there's mid, there's advanced. So know that you can't maintain the same skill level all through. And you like at some point you're gonna have to, maybe in one company where that works for you, but what you quickly realize is by the time maybe you want to switch roles, you don't really have what it is to do to move and be valuable elsewhere. So you're stuck in one place for a very long time because you're refusing to upskill. I think another thing that was important for me was like soft skills. At the end of the day, like if you want to be like a senior, if you see he's a data engineer, so like a senior data engineer and stuff. Yes, you have to know like the nitty-gritty, hands-on stuff. But again, you're gonna have to manage people. So as I do hope that we want to be like, seniors and experts in our field, right? There are things that you have to do that are not hard skills. They are people skills. You can't be a nasty person. Like eventually you're not going to have people who want to work for you, or you're going to have people who are trying to sabotage you. So work on those skills, communication. Oh my gosh, I've had to work with some people where it's like, oh, we're going to do this. And they're like, okay, oh yeah, you said you're going to do this. Why didn't you do it? And they don't say anything. And I'm the one who has to reach out to say, oh, you said you're going to do this. What happened? And life happens, right? Sometimes there are just things that you can't avoid. But there's the respect you have for the other person to say, oh, hello, I said I was going to do this at so and so time, but can I have an extension? The person probably be like, no, this is maybe a change in our plans or whatever. But they still recognize that, oh, this person, there's a level of mutual respect here. And even if, oh, again, something happens and you're not able to notify the person until it has passed, still reach out, communicate, which is one thing. Another thing that Emmanuel mentioned. So thank you so much for sharing, Emmanuel. Yeah. So you mentioned that you applied to, okay, I think one thing he didn't mention again is that networking. I think that in many ways, Emmanuel's career has been helped by networking. I'm not very good at meeting people, whether it's for networking for work or just life in general. How how do you network? How do you had a boss who was willing to pay for your education, and that's not because I don't know, right? How do you, first of all, how do you endear yourself to your employer in a way that is not um what's the word, eye servicey? There are those people in organizations where they're literally performing. How do you endear yourself to your employer? Um, and then how do you network and navigate through like searching for opportunities? Because I think the more, should I say, enjoyable or beneficial roles I've gotten haven't necessarily been like by applying. It's by, for me, has been by maybe talking to somebody who knows somebody, and the person says, I recommend this to you. So how do you move from being a random candidate in a pool of 2,000 people to, oh, this person is, stand out using, yeah.
Okay, so I think I'll make it more interesting. Fun fact, I think I've had two bosses now, that like I've worked with personally that has, extended this kind of things. One for school, one helped me get admission and was willing to help with my school fees for me to move like outside of Nigeria. That's happened twice. And I'll attempt to answer your question by saying something. It's my favorite quote in the world from my dad. He said, when you are in a room, let your presence be felt. And when you leave the room, let your absence be felt more, right? Someone can say it's impact. For me, it's actually value. Because if you appear valuable to people, if you are someone that every time you think about something good, your name pops up in the conversation. And then if you're absent, your name still pops up because maybe that thing would have been done if you were there and stuff like that. Then it puts you in people's good book, right? Um, it's more about values for me. One of them is always finish what you start. So I'm always careful to what's the word? To start something, or I think twice about it if I'm worried that, oh, I cannot see this thing through to the end, right? And like that's really, really helped because, when things get tough, that's the drive, that's the push, like, okay, we need to get this thing done, we need to finish it, right? So having that kind of resolve actually does help. Now, for the networking side of things, I really won't say I'm the expert, right? I think what's really important when you're starting out is not necessarily networking with experts. It's more about finding like minds, people that have similar interests to you when you are choosing something. Someone might have a natural relationship that is not maybe, a function of networking, right? With an expert already. Someone might know, for instance, if you're in the GDG world, someone might know a Google developer expert in a field, and that, they have a relationship outside of work or that skill. And then that person is trying to learn. That person has direct access. But then by virtue of friendship with that person, you also have some sort of access, right? You might know someone who works in a space and, they have a brother or something. And, one introduction, you're probably 2 people, 3 people away from somebody that you need to get to like the next place. And so one mistake a lot of beginners make that I did not naturally even observe, but then looking back, I realized is that we attempt, like you are starting, you have no value to offer to a mentor, but then you want to be a mentee. You build value more by rubbing minds with people that are trying to go in the same direction as yourself. You learn in a particular way, you transfer that knowledge to them. They learn in a particular way, they transfer that knowledge to you. You guys become a force, right? And so I feel like the foundation or the base is actually finding like minds. It's easier to pull information and resources together that way, right? Then the next thing is now active participation, right? That's really, really important because I mean, how did I start? I was reading books, burning midnight candles after I graduated to learn about concepts in machine learning. How did you really stick? I attended a GDG event with 3 or 4 other friends, right? And then somebody was teasing we beginners and saying, I hope you can write code without looking at a textbook or without looking at Stack Overflow. Do you know what you are doing without looking elsewhere, right? And I mean, I observe a lot. I listen a lot. If I feel like you have value, I'm ready to listen. And so by listening and observing, I first of all look for role models before I look for mentors. And so if you're in a community, you do not necessarily need to tie yourself to people. Like communities are very good. You find like minds, you expand, you grow. But then one thing that people fail to do is people fail to observe. There are people that join a community because they are waiting for somebody that will post in the group chat about a job opening, and then they want to latch onto that job opening. Before that person has posted in the group chat, trust me, most times they've asked everybody in their inner circle first if they know somebody or they have somebody, and then if they cannot find it, they transfer it to the group chat or they transfer it to the community platform, and that's when you have access to that information. And so like the chain there is actually very poor, it's very weak, right? And so what I really focus on sometimes is, okay, you know I need to find people that have common interests as myself. The second thing is, oh, how can I actively participate? How can I volunteer? How can I show some sort of value, not just to my friends, but to the community at large? And then from there, how do I gain genuine access to people, right? Because someone who is extremely busy and he knows he's valuable will not give you his time by default, right? Because as you grow, even as an expert in your field, one of the hard things you have to learn is how to say no to a lot of things and say yes to very few things. And so by default, potential mentors don't want mentees. That's the reality. And so how do they identify people that they can help? They want someone who will make their job easy, someone who is willing already, someone who is actively participating, someone who has drive and motivation on their own, right? And those are the kind of values that if someone says, oh, potentially this person can bring these things to the table, they'll be happy to assist you, right? And so I think the key to networking is first of all finding like minds, right? And then trying as much as possible to pool resources, share knowledge so that knowledge will be shared with you, share information so that information will be shared with you. And I feel like all of the other dots will connect. That's my own hot take. I might be wrong, but that's how I've approached it. And I think that's how it can really, really work.
Wow, I think there's a lot to unpack there and a lot to learn from, even for me. So people have high value people, high value professionals, they have a lot on their plates, right? And so you be like, oh, come and mentor me. Like what is the reason why amongst all the things that they are doing and engaged with, why you, right? So it may be more beneficial, like Emmanuel said, to find a community to to of people. There's sometimes, doing life alone, we look for like life partners, but we also need like partners with like our like career vision, right? Because a lot of times there's just a lot of uncertainty and many things that you don't know. So exposing yourself to a community can give you some clarity, right? To say, oh, maybe I was really interested in product design before, but just from being around product designers and product design, I actually think I'd be a better product manager, right? That's but then you may not necessarily be able to navigate that on your own, or if you are, it will probably take you a longer period of time. So definitely find a community. Emmanuel mentioned the GDG, which is the Google Developer Group. I volunteered with one for a very long time. And even though I was not a developer, and at the time people used to look at me crazy, like, you don't program. I was like, no. And so it was like, what is this girl doing here? But that was I was talking about like web content writing and content design for like a long time, and before it was a thing, and especially because of where my GDG was, which is like Mina, which is where we went to school. So it was strange. And so sometimes I look back now, I'm like, and there was people talking about this thing that is a career in tech, and people were looking at me like I was crazy because I was not a programmer, right? But being exposed to programmers and like programming and different frameworks was all I needed to know for sure that I did not want to be a programmer, even though I had a degree in computer science, right? And so that experience still helped me, even though I was not a programmer, still helps me demonstrate my skills for like community organizing, leadership, and speaking to people, which was influential in me getting my scholarship, because it's like, oh, you're committed to technical education and all that. So which is again one of the things that Emmanuel mentioned, transferable skills. So I don't have coding skills, but I have people management skills. I have event organization skills. I have coordination skills. So very, very important. If you are not a part of a community, please join one. I don't know if whether it's in tech or it's in Japa. If that's one example where community is hugely important, because honestly, you can navigate some of these sites. I think it's called the Canadian one, it's called IRCC, and you just open it and you're like, I choose Nigeria because it can feel overwhelming. But then if you have someone to walk you through, it feels less daunting, right? Because you're like, oh, okay, this isn't as difficult or as I thought it was. And that helps you. You are encouraged, you are gingered. When you are in your community, for instance, because I've seen it a lot in like these Java communities, you hear that this person that was on the same group with you, and you were doing the same process, and this person has gotten invited to Canada. You're like, hey, and I know this person, you are gingered, you are motivated to keep at it because you are seeing people get results doing what you are doing. And so you are motivated to do more. So yeah. So right now, we're gonna be asking Emmanuel questions. So if you have a question, please you can indicate either by raising up your hand or by typing it in the group chat. But as people try to come up with stuff, what is, to Emmanuel, like what is one thing that, if you were to give like summarize everything that you've said, what's one takeaway you want people to have?
I think it's learning, right? Like you should never ever stop learning. I mentioned stuff about like, transferable skills. And when I was even talking about transferable skills, it's the hard ones, right? Something you use on your current job that can potentially open a door for you to transition into another role or another job and stuff like that, right? And you have to be really deliberate about it. One of the things I learned about goal setting in January that was like mind blowing for me is like measuring goals, like doing things in a way that you can measure it. I think most times when we get our dream job, our dream salary, dream this, dream that, we feel like we have peaked, we have got into it. So it's time to enjoy, no longer work hard, especially when you feel like, oh, this particular job just requires me to do Python. I'm a beast with Python. So there's really nothing new to learn. I'm going to stop there, right? Like you should always push the border of like knowledge you have. And one way to like stay faithful or to actively learn is to kind of like develop this culture of, having objectives or goals and like time boxing them, right? It might be completing one certification every quarter, and then, you attach something to it. A very good example I learned in January was the person who was teaching us about it, like he has books he wants to read. And so he has a spreadsheet, and then he has like all of these books there, and then he assigns like points or goals to them. And so at the end of a month, he can kind of, in a measurable way, say, this is how much I have studied, this is how much I have learned. And if the total attainable points for the month was 150, I have gotten 75. So he has like some sort of grading for his 75 over 150, and he knows that he hit his target by 50%, hit his target by 80%. When you do things that way, I think there's motivation. In your heart of hearts, when you are living life on, I don't know, autopilot mode, and when you are being deliberate about making progressions from like one point to another. Because I mean, there's no such thing as knowledge loss, in my opinion. When you learn, it's always knowledge that you use in one way or the other, and it just expands your mind and creativity too. So I think the key is that willingness to always learn, willingness to be a beginner at something else, start all over again, like accept it and like always like keep at it. Yeah, learning is super important.
Okay, thank you. Learning, I've found that learning never stops. So at my current student worker role, I wanted to get experience with a particular project, and then they were like, "Oh, come and work as a technical assistant, technical project manager." And then I attended stand-ups, and I was like, "What are these people talking about? I should have paid attention when I was getting my CS degree." Because the only thing I paid attention to, like at the end of the day, was Emmanuel talked about predicting I think epileptic seizures. Mine was predicting students' academic performance. And it just occurred to me now that I've always been interested in education. So it's ironic that I work in education right now. But like I was like, huh? But my my brain also kind of works like a machine learning algorithm where I need to be exposed to stuff. So I don't need, I may not understand what you're saying, but I just need to keep hearing it. And then I piece one or two things together, and I was like, okay, so what can I do to learn and be better at the job? Which is, I was like, oh, there are a few courses on maybe LinkedIn Learning and whatever, just to see, okay, this is what it is. And then as if that wasn't enough, they were like, oh, we use Salesforce. I was like, what kind of problem is this? I'm already doing masters. What do you want from me? So it's like being humble to say, okay, this is Salesforce thing. Let me even see what this is about. Let me try to understand. So yes, fortunately or unfortunately, learning never stops. Um, it is what it is. So I guess trying to learn, and like you said, willing to be a beginner. So we need to look foolish. Honestly, sometimes my new supervisor gives me stuff and I'm like, eh? And so honestly, sometimes I take like 2 days trying to, I'm like, bro, what's someone saying? And then I asked maybe someone else for help because I don't want to ask them, so that it's not be like, this babe doesn't know what she's doing. But I was like, bring someone in. I said, okay, what is this? And I'm able to get clarity and then do what I'm supposed to do. It seems like, is it me or you people don't have questions? We have a few minutes left, so please, if you have questions, please type them in the chat. One more thing that came to mind. Okay, Vora has raised his hand. Okay, Vora, ask your question. I'll ask mine.
Good evening, everyone. So, the question that comes to mind is, how do you know when to leave a firm? The reason I'm also asking this question, besides the idea of career growth also going along with earnings growth sometimes, but I'm saying if your goal is not really about money per se, our probably earning more and all that, how do you know when it's time to actually like leave a firm and just go to the next firm, or in terms of your career growth and all that, that you can no longer be here? Do you get my question?
Yeah, Nikki, I can answer that, right? Okay, cool. So I think, like, all things being equal, if you're somewhere where the culture is great, you're happy with the pay, um, and then what, like, everything is good, but then you're trying to, like, oh, do I need to leave or do I not need to leave, right? I think it's more, it should align more with, like, your own desire for growth or expansion. If you feel like there's nothing new you can learn in a place, maybe you are already in some sort of repeated process, you work on one thing every day, you've become an expert on that thing, you have been able to successfully transfer that knowledge to other people, right? And there's potentially nothing new per se you can learn there, or there's no opportunity for you to, I don't know, maybe get promoted, like a more senior role or something like that, then that's usually a very good indication that you should leave a place, right? And for me, the way I tie it, because to be honest, I work in somewhere that has great culture, and I mean, I know they will never have a problem, but the way I tie it is, I mean, at some point I'll be looking for new challenges. So even from day one, I have written down goals. I want to be this, I want to do this. And when I get promoted to this position, then it's an indication that, okay, I have successfully attained this level of knowledge and I've impacted the company, in this particular way. And so it's time for me to start looking for something else, to challenge myself and to expand or to, like, increase in capacity. So all things being equal, I think when you find yourself in a position where like a particular role in a particular organization can no longer, reasonably add value to you as a career person, then it's probably time for you to consider, like, walking away.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Yeah, I think I've experienced similar stuff because I'm always taking on challenges, and I'm kind of, I've done many things. I've done corporate communications, instructional design, and right now technical project management. For me, I like to know stuff. I've always like in secondary school, I had a problem choosing between arts and science because I could do both well. Only difference is that with the arts courses, I was probably in like the 95th percentile, and maybe the science courses overall, I don't know, maybe in the 85th percentile or something, right? So I I know I always knew that I was going to have a problem choosing one thing to do. So I know for sure I'm going to be many things in my career, do many things, like many different roles, right? But in one of my last jobs in Nigeria, it got to a point where I was like, this is monotonous. I have given as much as I can give. I have learned as much as I can learn. So I had to leave, even though like the salary difference was 8,000 naira. There was, but and I had better benefits at the previous job. But I left because I was like, no, I'm done. So that may be a good indicator that you need something else. It's like muscles grow with use. Um, if you keep them stationary, I think it's called muscle, the atrophy or dystrophy or something, where they become weak and they can't work anymore. So yeah. One more question from me. So there's this age of social media and all that. There's a big debate about personal branding. I have my thoughts. Is personal branding important? If yes, how do you build a personal brand? Um, why should you build a personal brand? And as an entry-level person, should you be considering like having like a solid online brand? Like what are your thoughts?
I, I don't think, like, in terms of social media, I don't think, like, it's necessarily compulsory, right? Like, deciding to build a personal brand boils down to, like, your reason, your motivation for wanting to do it. in the first place. But then I think in the workplace, it's very important to be known for something. And that's more, it's really not about branding there. It's more about value. It's more about, deciding to be an excellent person. So if I'm really excellent at what I do, it means that every time someone mentions data and they're looking for an expert there, my name will somehow come up in the conversation, right? Now, when it comes to social media, I think there are two kind of leaders when it comes to like branding, right? Or let's say three kinds of people. They are influencers. They might not be experts, they might not have the hottest take, but then they can attract numbers, or like they can make numbers for you, right? So those kind of people, they can influence adoption of a product. They can help create awareness for the product, that kind of thing in a particular space, right? The second kind of people are thought leaders. They may not be technical experts, but they are somehow up to date and they have their own thoughts on how certain things should go, or like how certain things should happen. This kind of people eventually, they dabble into things like consultancy, right? But not as technical consultants. They can help you source for the experts in those fields. They are up to date, they can pull resources together. They can tell you if a particular person, like maybe like a freelancer, is charging you too much or too small, what tools you should try, that kind of stuff. They are very, very informed. The third circle of people when it comes to like building a brand are technical experts, right? Most times they're usually ICs in companies, but they are really, really, really good at showing you or educating you on how to get stuff done, right? And I feel like that's the hardest niche when you're trying to carve it, because you must know your stuff, you must know your onions, you must know what you are saying, and like you can get your hands dirty, right? Now, I think as regarding career growth, if your long-term goal is, oh, maybe I want to go into the business of this thing, I don't necessarily just want to work in it as maybe like working for someone else, then you definitely need to build a brand. If it's, oh, I want to benefit from, the flow of money in this particular industry, but then I mean, you want to be an influencer, obviously, you should create a brand. If it's that, oh, I think I can get financial freedom without starting a company necessarily, but then I can be the expert in this thing. And so people pay me for expert knowledge, a technical expert. You should definitely create a brand. What are the opportunities that comes from all of these things? You are always on the lips of people. You always slip into the ears of people. And so it makes it easier for you to get opportunities, right? And fun fact with being a technical expert, or like being, someone that is somewhat technical on somewhere like LinkedIn, there are certain certifications that if you have, you don't even need to come and say, I'm happy to announce that I've now gotten this. So long it's in your profile, and maybe like you work in a good company, people will come in your DM. So there are certain certifications that in their own way, they position you, they put you in this kind of spot, right? And then there's also opportunity to network when you brand. That's also like one huge benefit of it, right? Because thought leaders, influencers, other technical experts will, if you put out really good content, they will interact with your content. You will get feedback. You will make friends from there, and then the recruiters, the evil eyes on LinkedIn too, somewhere like LinkedIn, maybe Instagram or TikTok, they see you also and they want to work with you. And so basically it means that, like there's a huge opportunity there. And depending on one of these three buckets I described, you might eventually become some sort of gatekeeper, you're a bridge. When people are looking for experts, they reach out to you, you get the experts. You can convert that to revenue for yourself if you want. If you are the technical expert, companies will reach out to you. They want to hire you, right? Especially startups. And now we're talking about even foreign startups. Because if they are building a product that is not popular and they have someone that has like great branding already, and that person is working on their product, then it's an opportunity for them. So yeah, you can get some kind of ROI there also. And so generally, I think the like, is branding important? Yes and no. Yes, if you have a goal tied to it and you're deliberately like working to that thing. No, if like your motivation is, oh, I just want to be excellent and I want to be in my corner. You don't necessarily have to brand yourself, to achieve that. So high level, that's how I would describe it in my own words.
Okay, thank you. I think you can build a personal brand, like regardless of where you are at your career, so whether it's entry level or all that. I think so a lot of people, what I've seen is that they make their learning, they document their learning process, and that's a good way to do personal branding as an entry level person. And you don't also have to be talking all the time. Some people think personal branding is always having something to say. That's yeah. Yeah, so there's a question in the chat. It says, when you are stuck in making the next career move, how do you maintain mental balance to just hold on to your current job while you try to make the next move?
I think the answer is very simple and practical for me. Find something you really love doing to distract yourself, or like to always look forward to. I was in a role, and I mean, like, I don't know if you remember, I really wanted to get out of it. I really, really wanted to get out of it. But then at the time, everyone around me said, wait, hold on, don't move yet. And stuff like, what did I do? I started like trying to contribute to open source and talk about it publicly, right? And so I always looked forward to the weekends. I did my job diligently during the week so that nothing bled into the weekend. And then I used all of my weekend passionately to do what I really cared about. And the interesting thing is, like, there was some sort of connection between what I was really trying to do on the weekends, to my job. What I was using it for, or how I was applying to my job, I hated it. But then every time I did it to my job, I learned something new I could transfer to what I was doing with my free time in the weekend. And that was the mental balance for me. It was kind of like, oh, Monday, don't worry, by Saturday you'll be free, or by Thursday evening you would have cleared your task and you'll be free, and then you have time to focus on what you were doing. And that's really, for me, that was my coping mechanism, just looking forward to that thing I was really, really interested in, and just, like holding on until I got onto it every single time. So very short answer, I might not be what you're looking for, but for me, just find a really, really good distraction and like dedicate time to it.
I think that makes sense. Find a ray of hope. Find something to, like an anchor that's like a bright spot, even especially like outside of work, to keep you going. So it's 2 minutes past 9. That we have come to the end of this session. Emmanuel, thank you so much for sharing with us, giving us practical tips and examples. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in for staying till the end. If you have questions, you can put it on the group chat. If you have like maybe a request from Emmanuel, want to know, okay, so what's your stack? Maybe can you share your resume? Can you share whatever? Just let us know in the WhatsApp group chat, and share your questions with Emmanuel. But until then, thank you so much. Enjoy your evening. While I go and sleep. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks so much, Mario. Thank you for being with us. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Bye.